USA podcast where we put you on the map. This is Ron Costa broadcasting live in Las Vegas in the Mappable USA studios. And as you all know, we are always talking crowdfunding. We're talking all these things about Regulation A. And, of course, we can't even get into this conversation without Mr. Crowdfund, Ron Sukenik from Simply Go Public. Ron, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ron. Thanks so much. I'm staying warm. I'm here in the Midwest. It's 0 degrees, but you're recording out of Las Vegas, and you got to be slightly warmer than me.
Well, they're talking about the polar vortex, and I'm embarrassed to say that yesterday I was outside in a T-shirt, so it's not too bad. Not too bad here in Las Vegas.
And by the way, I just wanted to compliment. We're thrilled to be sponsors of the show, but we love the work that you are doing. You're bringing on interesting guests, and certainly today is very interesting to me. This company, 2020 Gene System, they seem like they're smack where they need to be. Everybody, investors tend to emotionally get connected to health products, health care, whether it's health or tech.
Absolutely. And if you're an issuer thinking about going Regulation A or using Regulation A or any part of the Jobs Act, and maybe you're listening to this podcast on a archive, pause what you're seeing right now. Get everyone in the room, get your whole marketing team together, because this is really going to be great. We're going to bring on right now Jonathan Cohen from 2020 Gene System. Jonathan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We're a little bit colder than you are out in Vegas. I think we're up to a high of 14 degrees. We're located in Rockville, Maryland, just outside of our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. So I am a bit envious.
Man. Yes. Well, I'll tell you what, I think everybody in the crowdfunding world should be envious of you guys, because you guys so far are an example to everybody out there how to do this right, how to move this thing forward. You guys have started from basically scratch, and now you're taking investments. You're doing really great. Why don't you tell our audience about your company? What's 2020 Gene Systems? Just a quick overview.
Great, happily, and thanks for the kind words, Ron. And your show, frankly, has certainly been a contributor. I have been listening regularly to your predecessor show on Regulation A. It was quite informative, and I have become a huge, huge fan of this mode of financing. I'm convinced it's not only good for the entrepreneurs, but it's actually good for the investors. First, a little bit about our company. 2020, our mission is to reduce cancer mortality in the United States and around the world through early detection. We are passionate about the potential impact of early cancer screening to save lives. The cancers for which we're focusing currently, and we have now a new multi-cancer blood test called One Test. Website is onetestforcancer.com, is useful to help people and their physicians screen and identify earlier signs of cancers like those of the lung, liver, pancreas, ovaries, otherwise lethal cancers that have very, very poor outcomes when detected late, and that's when they're usually detected. In contrast, if these cancers are identified in stage 1 and surgically removed before they spread, survival rates in the case of lung cancer can exceed 90% versus 2 or 3% when they're caught at a late stage. So that's our passion. That is our mission. We do it with a somewhat unique approach. Our test, One Test, for example, utilizes or measures a panel of proteins, not genes, but what are called tumor antigens in the blood. Some of these are familiar to your listeners. PSA is prostate-specific antigen. That's one. We look at CEA, CA125, CA19-9, and one that's not as common in the United States is called STRA, which is for lung cancer. So we take a panel of these, and then we use machine learning algorithms, a type of AI, to substantially improve the accuracy. And those are built with data from thousands of people around the world that have had similar tests over a period of years. So we factor in real-world data. In other words, somebody gets a test, and then there's a 1-year follow-up to find out whether or not they had cancer. And then with that, we feed that into the algorithm for improved accuracy. So that's the gist of what we're doing. Happy to pause for questions before talking about Reg A and equity crowdfunding.
Yeah, I'm curious, Ron. This is Ron Sikenic. I noticed your one test sells for $189, and I know you're looking at biomarkers. Who actually interprets the results from this one test? How is that understood?
Right. So we have a model that's actually become popular among some of the consumer genomics companies in Silicon Valley, and it's called a consumer-initiated model. What that means is that while we advertise and market to the consumer, we request that they go to a doctor or qualified medical practitioner of their choice, and they sign effectively the prescription. And we do that for a few reasons, but we think that's the responsible thing to do. So it's not a pure direct-to-consumer like some of the popular consumer genomics tests where you simply spit into a tube or swab your cheek. So as a result, our current model is to focus on both integrative care physicians or doctors that do sort of combine Eastern and Western medicine. And this approach, by the way, is extremely popular in the Far East, where people in Japan, Korea, Taiwan, China, Singapore get not a 10-minute physical once a year, but a 5 or 6 hour checkup that invariably includes a blood test similar to one test. So we are marketing to consumers, but then they go to a doctor. To make it convenient for people, we are engaging with retail clinics such as urgent care centers. And in the last 2 months, we have signed on 5 or so urgent care centers that are going to be carrying this test. 2 here in Maryland, 1 in Virginia, 1 in North Carolina, and actually 1 in Kansas, Wichita, Kansas. There will be more to come. And that allows us to sort of advertise and then let people come in on a walk-in basis to a qualified and trained doctor or nurse practitioner, have their blood drawn. This requires a full phlebotomy-type blood draw, not a finger. And then the results are usually delivered to the patient or consumer as well as the doctor within 3 or so business days. So that's the gist of the approach. We provide both the biomarker values using the standard cutoffs that are used around the world, but the unique sort of special sauce, if you will, is the algorithm, the machine learning algorithm that basically compares the result of the individual being tested to those of thousands of others in the database to indicate the likelihood that the individual may have cancer relative to out of 100 people with a similar score or pattern, how many of them were found to have cancer within a year. And in most cases, it's under 10, so it's under 10 out of 100. So it rarely causes panic, but the goal is not to create worry or panic, but action. And that action might be a follow-up test to monitor the change, which is very important. It might be a form of imaging, such as an ultrasound, a colonoscopy, and so forth. That is the goal. And so this test is really the opening of the funnel, if you will. And then people can then be guided to follow-up testing, often by medical specialists, in hopes of identifying early treatable cancers rather than the tragic and unfortunate situation which we all have encountered with friends and family members where they're suddenly and unexpectedly diagnosed with advanced cancer and given a very, very poor prognosis.
Let me ask you this, Jonathan. By the way, you're doing great things, and for the purpose of this call, I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer about a year ago, and I'm in remission right now. They can't seem to find the cancer. So it's all about building the immune system, and I guess once you have it, you always have it. I guess that's what oncologists say. But but I'm curious. It's a full-time gig to be the CEO and founder of your company. And then it's a full-time gig in raising money, but you've had some great success. It sounds like you've been bringing in grant money, and then somewhere down the road, somehow, you decided to get involved with doing a Reg.CF, raising, I think, in excess, about $1.07 million is the most. But could you tell us a little bit about how you got into the concept of equity crowdfunding to support the growth of the business?
Absolutely. For us, equity crowdfunding is totally in sync with our business model and our marketing approach. So just as cancer, unfortunately, doesn't discriminate based on your net worth or the value of your home. It afflicts people of all socioeconomic levels, as we know. And so we're interested in having shareholders that are beneficiaries of our product. And we're blessed with the Jobs Act. I mean, since the Great Depression of the 1930s, up until the Jobs Act, which was only implemented by the SEC in the last couple of years, basically only rich people could invest in pre-IPO companies, with a handful of limited exceptions. Now, just about anyone can invest, at least a small amount, and that's important to us because we have not only in theory but in practice we have found that now our over 3,500 shareholders. So we have just under 4,000 shareholders become brand ambassadors, if we will. At least 40 or 50 of them have either had or requested one test, and they then would, and we have, depending on how much they invest, can have it for no cost if they reach the perk, so to speak, or even if they don't reach that, we offer a discount to our shareholders. So they become more than stockholders; they become, in essence, evangelists for the product. So it's been more, and furthermore, I have found, and I've done fundraising of all types, from corporate venture to angel clubs, and everything in between, grants and so forth. I have actually found that crowdfunding, and as you correctly pointed out, we did both Reg.CF and we hit the statutory maximum or the regulatory maximum of $1.06 million. That was last year on Indiegogo's equity platform, Microventures. And now, currently, we are on SeedInvest, and we will be on SeedInvest for another 15 days. Basically, through mid-February, we will be live, and then that will wrap up that round. Probably will exceed $5 million. We're at 4.4 as we speak. But I have actually found it to be less time-consuming than the other forms, and a lot of people assume otherwise. And that allows CEOs and their teams to focus on their business and not constantly running around making investor pitches, responding to questions, and so forth. So not only is it a way to spread the word of your product, but it's actually from my experience, less time-consuming once you are qualified. Now, there is a lot of front-end work with the SEC, with the audit. So that was, in some cases, quite exhaustive. But once that qualification comes, and in our case it came in mid-August, and you're fortunate to be on a successful platform like the two that I mentioned, it's really very cost-effective in terms of time for the CEO, because instead of answering one person's questions come up every few days on the platform, you're answering it, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people can see the answers to the questions. So you're not doing a huge amount of one-on-one. You're basically speaking to the crowd. So I think that for us, once again, it's been a form of financing that is totally in sync with our values, our mission of providing cancer testing really to everyone of all economic levels at an affordable and making it convenient through this retail model. So that's why we're so bullish about equity crowdfunding.
Oh, no, and to build the crowd helps to build the funding, and to get the people to use it. and to tell other people about it. Let me ask you this question, Jonathan. I'm curious. So we know on right now you're doing a Reg A. You got so many days left. You just can't put something up and expect people to show up. Well, what aspect of marketing are you contributing to the platform? How are you getting people to see the offer? And how are you budgeting for that?
Right. We are doing some. We are doing we're doing our Facebook campaign. I think we're now committing. Last couple weeks, we've been committing about $1,000 a day. I must tell you, and this is to some extent contrary to a lot of the conventional wisdom. My experience, our experience of 2020, both from our Reg A and from Reg.CF, is that social media marketing is of secondary impact. It really is mainly about the platform and the extent to which they have a large and well-qualified email list of individuals that are interested in this type of investing, that understand that they are allowed to invest and that have an interest in it. And the larger the database of the platform, the more successful the issuer is likely to be. From my perspective, there's a bit of an urban myth around social media marketing and so forth. Now, there may be exceptions to that if you have a company with a brand that has thousands of consumers. That sometimes perhaps that could be a factor. But we have seen limited evidence that social media marketing, digital marketing, moves the needle in terms of closing investments. There is some evidence, and I will say not everyone agrees with that. I know there are issuers, successful issuers on SeedInvest as we speak that are spending considerably more than we are on that. But when we press that for data, connecting the dots between ad spending and dollars closed, I have not seen that evidence so far.
So you're happy then with being on an established platform that has a subscriber base of investors that are smart enough to figure out, which is largely, I would think, accredited investors. Am I correct? You're not driving unaccredited investors to the investment, are you? On SeedInvest?
Well, again, yes. Well, but we're not. I'm sure we're doing some of that. Again, I'm not going to suggest that our $1,000 a day is not getting anything. Clearly, it's having some impact. But from everything, all the data that I've seen, the vast majority, 80 or 90% of the investments on the platform have been organic to the platform, rather than ones that we have brought to it. Now, we, of course, have our own base. We have our base from Reg.CF and from our existing base, and that contributes. And we certainly do conventional. I was in Miami earlier in the week and did a presentation down there. A few weeks ago, I did a presentation in San Francisco. So we do the live presentations, and that has some value. But by far, the vast majority of it comes from the email lists of the platforms. I've seen that now with both our Microventures campaign and the SeedInvest campaign. And again, I would venture to guess it's at least, in terms of the numbers of investors, more than 80% are non-accredited. In terms of dollars, it's maybe 50-50. I don't know for sure. But by far, the vast majority of the individuals that have invested have been non-accredited.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take that you just had on that, because I think the subject matter of what you're doing also helps you out a little bit too, because you're talking about cancer detection, something that is part of just about everybody's life. Someone's known someone, somehow you're touched by cancer, and I think if you see something on a platform like that, you have basically a life-changing opportunity to invest into something. It's a little bit more interesting than, let's say, somebody who's, I don't know, building bikes or something. So I think when people see that and they see your company and what you guys are doing, I think that adds a little bit more interest into investors' minds, saying, you know what, I want to find out more information about this company.
Absolutely. I mean, I found that over the years when I've done angel investors, they often have multiple motives. So almost invariably, it includes return on investment. They want a good return on investment. They separate charities from their financings, but beyond that, people invest in things that they want to see succeed for themselves, for their family, for their community, and so forth. So I suspect that definitely has an impact. I don't believe, by the way, that to succeed with crowdfunding, with equity crowdfunding, a company has to have something on the market. It certainly helps a bit, but I actually have seen some very successful campaigns where the companies are absolutely pre-revenue.
Yes.
And I'm surprised. We are probably the most successful med tech company, one of the most successful med tech companies or bio companies at equity crowdfunding in the United States. So when you combine the two, the Reg.CF and the Reg.A, we're just under 6 million right now, and we'll probably be at 6 million in 2 weeks. So you could probably count on one hand the number of companies that have raised that much money from the crowd. There are a few that have done Reg.As, but the ones that I'm aware of were mostly institutional investors. They did Reg.A not so much for the crowd side, but really for other reasons in terms of their ability to become
and most are going Reg.A. Most are going Reg.A Tier 2 too, because they want to have that ability to at some point go to a major market like the Nasdaq. And what are the future plans for 2020 Gene Systems? You guys have it. What's your vision on this for the future?
Sure, and I need to qualify this as this is something that is merely in a discussion stage for this, so I don't want to in any way suggest to your listeners that we will or will not go down a particular path. But one idea that has been suggested to us, we just brought in a new CFO who has advised us to maybe raise a little more later in the year under Reg.A, do maybe another equity campaign, maybe in the late summer, early fall. Hopefully, we will earn a higher valuation through commercial progress, and then go on to the OTC, and then do a C round, another round that would be really institutional to uplist, specifically to uplist, stay on the OTC for 86 months, the over-the-counter market, and then uplist to a national exchange, either NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. So that is one idea that is being considered. I think for our board, showing in the next 6 to 8 months signs of commercial traction, and we can define that any number of ways, but you sort of know it when you see it, is going to be a huge influencer as to the decision to go on to either the over-the-counter market or a stock exchange like NASDAQ. If we're seeing it over the next 6 to 8 months, I think our board would be more inclined to do that. And if not, we would use the additional capital to double down on things that are working and if necessary, tweak our commercial model. Right now, based on the last 2 or 3 months, we are feeling very good about our commercial trajectory. We've been deploying. And by the way, one of the things I think your listeners should know about Reg.A that is somewhat unique from a traditional private placement is that it is what is often referred to as a rolling raise. In other words, you basically can draw down the funds, every couple of weeks and put them to work. So we've been qualified since mid-August. I think we went live in September, and have been putting to work a lot of the monies that have already been raised. So our head count, Ron, since you and I spoke last year,
yes,
is more than double. We're I guess 15, 16 full-time equivalents. We have personnel in both Taiwan, and we hired a very strong full-time Middle East director based in Israel. So we have an office in Israel now, and he is, as we speak, at a conference in Dubai, Arab Health, one of the largest in the world, medical conventions. So we are seeing some early commercial pilots, at least in not only Dubai, Israel, Egypt, Taiwan, signed a distribution agreement in Japan, in discussions with some folks in the United Kingdom. And by the way, we may be on Crowdcube just after SeedInvest in a week or two. They are the largest and first equity crowdfunding platform in the world, and I believe the most successful in the world. So that's also somewhat unusual. We will only be, I think, the second or third American company, at least under the Reg A, to be on Crowdcube in England. So that should be interesting.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Obviously, the product has worldwide implications and a worldwide audience. So yeah, that's not surprising. That's great that you guys are making these kinds of strides. It's really impressive. And like I said at the top of the show, I'm sure there's a lot of issuers out there that are listening to this right now and hearing your story and saying, yeah, this could be done. This is a great example of how to do Reg A right. And you know, I really want to get back to your topic about the social media and how you know, that's not the end all too. Some people, you know, they don't know how to do social media, and it's not the only thing that they can do. They can go a whole bunch of different angles on this. And again, you know, Ron, I'm sure you'll agree, in terms of building a crowd, there's a lot of different avenues to pursue on that. And Jonathan's company is a great example of somebody who's doing just that, just by going on a portal. How did you find this new portal, Jonathan? Did they contact you, or did you just kind of research them, or what?
I believe they were introduced to us. There's a handful of portals that really are responsible for the bulk of the fundraising under equity crowdfunding. So I would urge entrepreneurs to review the major players. The criteria really come down to how large is their lift, and then what is. You can just look on the sites and see what companies are actually raising.
Yes.
You know, I think I'd like to see more, and I believe we will start to see more broker dealers doing this. And I think the thing that will drive it is more entrepreneurs, more high-quality companies. From what I've observed from our side, as well as the other companies that are doing very, very well on SeedInvest and the others, is really it's interesting. I think the crowd is looking for many of the same things that so-called professional venture capitalists and other investors are looking for. They would like to see products that are innovative, that have some form of intellectual property protection around them, addressing a compelling unmet need, strong management teams, and all the fundamentals. If you look at the questions that the crowd has asked 2020, they're almost identical to the ones that I get from the most seasoned venture capitalists. We're not only crowdfunded. We have, among others, one of the largest healthcare companies in China called Ping An is not only a shareholder, they're actually on the board. A leading Silicon Valley venture capitalist specializing in diagnostics. It's a new fund called Digital Diagnostics, as the name implies. They're focusing on companies at the intersection of laboratory testing and analytics, much like 2020. So they invested a bit in this round as well. So, but I find the questions from the crowd are virtually identical to the ones that the so-called pros come up with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting too. And before we end the show, Jonathan, I have one more question for you. When we spoke last, which was a while ago, you had mentioned you had something called a Paula's test. Is the Paula's test the same as the one test, or is that just a different brand name, or are you guys still doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Paula's test is a product we've been working, we've been marketing for over 3 years. It's an acronym. It's a lung cancer test basically, and it's an acronym. But it also the name was in memory of a woman named Paula Shore, wife of a physician shareholder who died of lung cancer. We are now in the process of integrating that test and algorithm into one test. So my best guess is that within 2 months, consumers of one test will basically be baked in. So the biomarkers are mostly the same. There was one biomarker in Paula's test that we're not able to integrate into one test. But 3 of the 4 biomarkers are the same, and then the algorithm will be the same. We're transitioning the platform. The platform that we were using with Paula's test was more, I use the analogy where it's like going from a bicycle to a motorcycle. We are now using the kind of robotic instrumentation that you see at the major national lab chains like Quest Diagnostics and LabCorp. So that will be embedded within one test, which is good for not only for lung cancer, which is still a high priority for us, but also it integrates American data into an algorithm that right now is largely based on data from Taiwan. So for a variety of reasons, this is a good thing for us and for our consumers.
Yeah, you're really doing some amazing work and everything. I really am, I tip my hat to where you guys have been and where you're going and what you've done so far. Ron Sukenik, Simply Go Public, they got any closing questions or remarks? I mean, this is pretty amazing, don't you think?
I thought maybe kind of a simple, helpful tip for Jonathan. Again, he's doing everything right. He's focused and clear, and there's an emotional connection for a lot of people. The one thing I noticed, Jonathan, but it's just an idea for you, you don't have a company page on LinkedIn. You have a profile for 2020, and there's nothing in it. And let me just tell you, there's really a trend because there are so many investor groups on LinkedIn, and it's a free platform. So an idea for you, if you've got a social media marketing person, open up a company page for free. It's free, not a profile. All the people that work for 2020 Genes become a brand extension. And then you start to get involved or connected to these investor groups, these equity groups, these crowdfunding groups. And I will tell you, I've seen people raising hundreds of thousands of dollars directly out of these groups once you're connected to the groups, and it's free to do that. So that's just another idea, just as a thought. But wow, thanks so much for taking the time to be on the call. You've got a great background as a patent attorney and been around biotechnology for a long time. And if you're making a difference for people, and and you're coming up with something that can somehow figure out that somebody's got cancer and get early detection, that's great news. And I'm sure you're going to have a great success in the future, and you're going to raise as much as $50 million with the Reg A one day.
Well, as they say, from your lips to God's ears, and I appreciate the suggestion, appreciate the kind words. To your listeners that are interested in our cancer test, you should visit One Test for Cancer, onetestforcancer.com. Those interested in considering an investment should do so by at the latest the second week of February, because that's when the round will on SeedInvest at least will be over. And should go to SeedInvest, SeedInvest.com. And once again, I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, and thank you for all that you guys do to promote this very important type of financing.
Jonathan, always a pleasure to have you on for sure. And maybe a couple of months or so, we'll get you back on. We'll do a little update on your progress and see where your project will be listed on the next portal. But I'm going to put all these links into the show notes. So if you're listening to the Mappable USA podcast on MappableUSA.com, on this page you'll see the links to all the things that we talked about today. If you want to get more information on investing into 2020 Genes, there'll be a link there as well. And of course, on the homepage of the site, you can subscribe on all our syndication sources. Pick the one you like best: iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, it doesn't matter, Google Podcasts. We're all over the place, and we really appreciate you guys listening, and we like bringing the show to you guys. We're at MappableUSA.com. Check it out, and we'll be at you next time with another episode. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Ron, for being on the show. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks.